Welcome back, Honors. So, if I get at all distracted, I apologize. I'm watching Carolina take on Georgia Tech right now, and right now we're up 31-26, so let's hope this keeps carrying on, right? We want a good weekend for the Heels, good weekend for the Birds, all of those things. So, the main point of this flip is to finish up the Middle Ages stuff up to the Black Death. So with the Honors kids, I like to do the Black Death when we talk about the Renaissance, because actually a lot of people are misinformed about the Black Death, because a lot of people say the Black Death actually hurt the economy, which where a lot of revisionist historians actually believe that there's a chance that the Black Death helped the economy leading into the Renaissance, right? That the tragedy of the late Middle Ages actually led to an increased part of the economy, right? So anyway, but we stopped in class talking about Joan of Arc, right? So Joan of Arc, probably one of the big major momentum shifters. Speaking of basketball, right, as I watch it right now, momentum's a huge deal. Sports and in wars, right? So all you need is a couple of big shots, big goals, big battles that you won, and the momentum can begin to shift, right? So, as we know, early on, England was dominating this war. And the reason why it lasted so long is due to the fact that it wasn't just England versus France. It was England versus France and Scotland. But then it was also England and northern France against other parts of France, right? So it's a lot of different, very different crazy things. But it all started just over secession. Who's going to get the throne, right? Is it going to be this guy that lives in England, or is it going to be one of the French nobles, right? So it's going to end up passing to Philip, and then, of course, the war gets started when Philip takes away, takes away, takes away land in France from Edward II, or Edward III, and it's going to blow up in his face. So we also talked about a lot of weapons development that popped up during this war. Cannons, gunfire. Also a big one, longbows, right? The Englishmen are going to use these things called longbows instead of crossbows. Because remember we talked about how crossbows were inefficient because they take a tool to actually pull back? So longbows are actually much more accurate, and they can shoot stuff up in the air, and it can actually arch over and hit a faraway army, right? So other cool things, though, especially about Joan, she's going to start hearing the voices of God and the Archangel Gabriel at about the age of 13. I don't think it's actually the Archangel Gabriel. It might be Michael. I'll have to look that up. Cut her hair, dressed like a man, and walked for 11 straight days to find Prince Charles, right? So Prince Charles was the rightful heir to the French throne at the time. But here's the problem. Paris had been taken by the English, right? So there was no ability for him to access the crown jewels nor the throne. So thing about it, though, she walks for 11 days after the local judge would not listen to her pleas to say, I've heard from God, I've heard from God, I've heard from God. Now, she took Charles into a private room when she got there and found Charles in the city of Reims, and then actually told him, look, check it out. I've heard the voice of God, and you should probably let me lead your military. He is originally going to say no, but then he's going to take her into a private room, and no one knows what he did, but in front of him and a few of his bodyguards, she convinced him somehow that she had heard the voices of God. And no one to this day knows what she said, right? So, but he is going to believe her, and look at Joan of Arc looking like an absolute G. She is going to then, speaking of being a G, Charles is going to grant her an army. Joan had a huge victory at a city called Orleans. Yes, the origin of New Orleans, the city in Louisiana, right? A lot of French culture there as well. Joan had a huge victory in Orleans. And destroyed the Anglo-English army, as in an English force, not a northern French force. She wore white armor and rode a white horse into battle like a G. How awesome is that? She's just no big deal. I can't wear white. It gets dirty all the time. So anyway, but she had a major victory, and she led Charles to Reims, again, where he would eventually be crowned king of the French. And this is actually a very, very cool event because his dad was actually called Charles the Mad. He was a little bit crazy and stuff like that, and we believe may have had schizophrenia, but also very, very, very unfortunate circumstance. But she is going to lead him to Reims. He's going to be crowned king. Unfortunately, though, when she goes back out into battle, she is going to be captured outside of Paris when she is trying to regain control of Paris for the French. And she is going to win tons of different battles over the English. But here's the thing. Guess who the people that caught her were? Northern French troops. So the northern French catch her and when she's trying to destroy these English forces, and they are going to ransom her to the French crown. They're going to tell Charles, be like, yo, we'll give you your girl back if you give us some money and also try and surrender this war. And Charles refused. And so the Northern Frenchmen were like, all right then, fine, we're going to sell her to the English. Because remember, this is all about economics. We talked about this, how like the Northern French were only interested in the fact that the English were giving them money for this wool trade and stuff like that, right? So they sold her to the English. The English are then going to put her on trial for heresy, right? So the English are going to put her on trial for heresy, and they gave her over 70 different charges, right? So you know how, like, for example, there was a football player recently in the news that got charged with 9 different things, including, like, aggravated verbal assault of a police officer, evading police officer, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Joan of Arc was charged with 70 different things, including witchcraft, heresy, and the funniest one out of all of them at the very, very bottom was cross-dressing, which I found hilarious because you couldn't just leave it at like 60. You had to put 10 more on there, and the last one just being, she dressed like a guy. All right, so anyway, now, very crazy thing, though, is that she's going to be held captive for over a year as they're waiting on the French government to try and appeal to this ransom. And they're also going to tell her, look, if you are going to be allowed to live and possibly just die in prison, if you tell us you never heard the voice of God, sign this document saying that you did it, and then also don't act out and surrender to the Catholic Church. She is going to actually say no, and she's going to cross-dress again. And when she did that, at the age of 19, she was burnt at the stake in London. All right, so very, very, very influential event in European history due to the fact of the martyrdom of a national figure, right? So she was a French national figure. And due to this, she is going to eventually later on be given a new trial in the later 1800s. And then in 1920, she is going to be canonized as the patron saint of France. So also, other really, really quick thing to understand is like Joan of Arc is majorly important because she is a momentum shifter. A lot of revisionist historians believe she's not that important. However, I still disagree with this due to the fact that morale is so important when it comes to winning a war, especially when it's been this long. So her early battles and victories over the English forces that she was greatly outnumbered and outmatched by, I believe gave the French a ton of nationalism and made them believe in their cause again. So I still believe that she's a huge deal. So that's the end of the Middle Ages stuff for now, okay? And then we're going to get into what your exam's going to look like right here. Okay, you ready? So let's go. So first and foremost, what should I study? Question mark? You should study your study guides, all right? So biggest thing is these are your study guides right here. You have your ancient civs one, okay? You have your Greece one. You have your Rome one. And you also have your Middle Ages one, okay? Big thing about these, I am trying to get together all of these, but for some reason I'm having a hard time finding my Greece one. So with that, what I need is one of you for extra credit to bring me in a copy of your Greece study guide, okay? And then I will scan it and make copies of it for anybody who needs it. But the thing about these study guides is I shouldn't have to do this, honestly, considering the fact that I gave them and made them to you in the first place, right? You shouldn't lose them. These are literally your avenue to the entire history course. If I were you, I'd hold on until like college and then use them to actually study then. Because I'm not even kidding. I use some of my old college notes when I'm making presentations and brushing up on history stuff, especially when I have to teach American history stuff, because I'm not as much of an American history scholar as I used to be, right? So now let's talk about the format of your exam, though. Format of exam. Y'all's is different from the CP kids because it's longer, it's more complex, the questions, the lexile of them is higher, and you also have to do 2 essays instead of 1, all right? So, but let's go ahead and get into it. So you have 75 multiple choice out the gate, okay? So now the multiple choice are, if you're studying your study guide, something you need to realize is that these multiple choice will seem like cake if you're studying your study guide. Because when you're studying your study guides, you're doing this without any help whatsoever. It's like a fill-in-the-blank question. It's saying, like, how many time periods are there in the Middle Ages? And you'll be like, oh, 3, early, high, late, right? The thing about it, with this, multiple choice questions should be considered easy because the answer is right there, all right? Like, it's there. All you got to do is circle it, all right? Now, the next part is going to be got to give you the number, 25, fill in the blanks. But here's the thing. I despise doing this, but due to the fact that it's on a Scantron, I have to, you get a word bank, okay? So, word banks for the weak. All right, but anyway, so you will be receiving a word bank. Now, it'll be split up into 2 sections, okay? So it's like 20. Wait, so there is no half of 25. So it's like it's like 12 on one section and then 13 on another. Okay, so you have like 13 in a word bank and 12 in a word bank. This is not that hard. All right, you should be able to crush that. It's not a big deal. So, and then the next part are you have 20 identifications. Okay, so let's talk about what an identification is really quick. What an identification is that's a historical figure. Okay, and then you had to give me 2 facts about them. Okay, so let me do an example real quick. Let's say that hypothetically, I don't know. Let's put Lauren Crayfick, okay, is our identification question, right? So for her, we would put plays hockey and is Canadian, right? So anyway, so now is this a simplified form of it? Of course, but that's what I'm getting at. So you'll be given the figure and you have to give me 2 pieces of information on them. Now let's do an actual one real quick. So let's say Pericles, right? Who is on the midterm, and I'm literally giving you an answer right now as we speak. All you'd have to do is put, like, for example, Archon of Athens, right? You could say elected 29 times. You could say paid government workers. You could say gave free seats to poor in Odeons and theater. You could say, I don't know, led Greek forces in Persian wars. You could say, what else? You could say rebuilt the Acropolis of Athens. As you can see, there is a ton of information on all these guys. We could keep going. We could just go da, da, da. And you can do this for all of these people that are going to be on there, okay? So they have a lot of info on them. All I'm asking for is 2 things. Now, please do not be generic about this information. Don't be like, oh, he's a guy. All right, like so, don't put male. That's not a piece of valid information, okay? So it has to be factual, good factual information. So last thing is 2 essays, 10 sentences each, okay? And graded on completion and information. So the main thing about these essays is they are meant to just be graded for completion. They're not like a DBQ. There's no source work or anything like this. These should be cake by comparison to the things you've written for me in the past. So they're not going to be hard. The main thing you need to do is you stick to the sentence limit and you fill it with as much information as you can, okay? Do not, the big cardinal sins about an essay on a midterm, do not do a lot of fluffy sentences like, I love Greece, all right? So, like, don't put stuff like that in there. Actually make them solid, factual things, okay? So, but that's it. So it's 20 sentences. It's not even that hard, all right? You're going to be given 2 hours to do that. Most of you breeze through multiple choice in, like, 2 seconds, all right? If you're spending more than a minute per multiple choice, I think we have an issue. So that is the format of your exam, okay? So that's the format of your midterm, and that's exactly what it's going to look like. And so here's my big thing, though. So on Monday, you'll be given a 5-minute period at the end, 5 minutes at end of period, okay? You will be allowed to guess any of the IDs, okay? You'll be allowed to guess any of the IDs in rapid-fire moments. And if you can guess them, then I'll tell you if they're on there or not, okay? So you'll be able to prepare yourself a little bit. But what I want you to think about while you're going through your notes this weekend and while you're studying is go through and find what you think might be the 20 most important figures that we've talked about so far. I'm only going to ask you questions about really, really important people. I'm not going to ask you about people that aren't that important, okay? So you get to guess any of the IDs on Monday in the last 5 minutes of class after we finish up Grudge Ball, all right? So we're going to do some reviewing. We are going to get you ready, and I'm going to be asking you questions during Grudge Ball directly from the exam, all right? So you'll be fine. You're being golden. See this as an opportunity to increase your grade and show me that you know this stuff, okay? But nice job. I will see you guys on Monday. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and go Birds, go Irish, go Heels, right? See y'all then.